Welcome back to the Arubenaya Show, the podcast that celebrates rebuilders, doers, and blue collar entrepreneurs shaping the world with their hands, grit, and vision. Today's guest is Darren Baggett, the founder and CEO of DNA Business Consulting, a no nonsense leader who believes in no ego, no shortcuts, no BS, just results. Darren has helped countless business owners transform, and build lasting company with honesty, structure, and strategy. He's here to talk about what it really takes to build a business the right way without the hype or shortcuts. It's really a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on and talk to you. I was really excited.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. So, Darren, what was it like growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad, I didn't have a lot of stuff. My mom and dad were really trying to work up and get to where they're at today, comfortable retirement and doing really well. But it really wasn't a bad childhood. I got to experience like the tail end of the 80s and the 90s, and looking at kids today, they really don't get to experience that. As far as the United States goes, it's kind of sad seeing it, but I think I had a really good childhood, pretty good upbringing. My parents were solid people.
Wow, amazing, amazing.
I guess growing up in the area that I did and being around small business owners and being able to see those processes and, you know, working for people and seeing things done right and then seeing things done wrong and then also seeing things done very wrong.
Yeah,
That right there kind of set me on a path of like, hey, I've gathered enough knowledge. At a certain point, I realized I've gathered enough knowledge. Like, I want to take a crack at owning my own business, starting something up from scratch. And that's kind of it. Once I did that, it was like a fire that just can't be put out. Being able to work for yourself it's different. You kind of have to be a bit of crazy, to deal with the daily grinds and the daily ups and downs. But when you shake it all out, it's more than worth it and it's more than satisfying.
wow, amazing, amazing. Thanks for sharing that. So, Darren, what actually inspired you to start DNA, build business consulting, and what problem were you trying to solve?
Right. Oh, good question. So it was kind of down that same path, right? Of I've gotten so much experience doing different things and managing people and handling problems and coming up with good resolutions for issues with, not not an increase in expenditure, but an increase in margin and able to output more value to the actual consumers of whatever it was at the time. It was just something that I realized uh, um, I have a real knack for this. I'm doing really good at this. I can kind of now start to translate some of this knowledge and a lot of these lows and especially the highs to other business owners that either a, are experiencing it, B, are looking for a fresh avenue to explore for expansion or whatever the case might be, or C, they really need help or whatever it is. There's really just a lot of different scenarios and cases to where I realize that I could be a lot of help to people in the business world. So, that's when I realized, you know, maybe I should go into like advising people and helping people that way. So then that way, the people who are struggling and potentially having to consider going back into a 9 to 5 job, like the workforce, I've talked to quite a few of those people. It's a sad conversation when people bring that up, like, things aren't doing really well. I've been considering, getting another job like outside of my business, to try and supplement income. And I might have to just shut this down in total. That was like one of the big light bulb moments to where it's like I can really help people, and it was also kind of consulting with people on like a freelance basis, like word of mouth. And then I decided to double down on it, really triple down, really, and come back into it because I had stepped away from just the word of mouth, you know, one-off projects, and I came back into it and I said, this needs to be like a world facing thing. I need to start building this to where people can start recognizing the company. They start to realize like what it is that we offer, the value. I also need to have really good thought leaders around me I need to contract with really good consultants who have a proven track record behind them in business. They've experienced the highs, they've experienced the lows, and bring those people in to work on projects and retainers with companies to be able to assist these companies the same way that I could, and really just build this out to be a new type of a consultancy that really can deliver the results for people. There's a lot of consultancies out there to where they will be hired on for a specific project and they might achieve that goal, but in the background, they're creating other projects inside of that company. So then that way they can stay on retainer. It's not ethical. It's not right. It's not a good business practice. And also, some of those companies, they'll also just kind of give you a blueprint, like a roadmap. And if somebody is truly, that's all they want, that's fine. But that's all that there's quite a few like little consultancies that I've seen pop up over the last few years to where that's really just their plan is give you a blueprint, a roadmap, and then it's kind of like, you know, I'll take my $10,000 or whatever it might be. And right there, you're setting that client up for like a higher probability of failure, right? Because they're most likely going to come back to you, or they're going to have to find somebody else because they're going to feel jaded or slighted by you and robbed, quite frankly. There's a lot to where you really need to be implementing, and it's your job to, once you're in that conversation, advise why you should be advising and on board through the whole process of that implementation, not just giving them the blueprint and hoping that they don't have to contact you back. You should really be walking them through that. One, it's going to obviously pay dividends to you, but that isn't something you need to worry about. You need to be more so worried about, am I leaving a really good, long lasting impression on this business? And am I also really making a full difference? And I'm not just kind of handing them something and taking money with really low quality effort on your end. So that's one of the things that we really take pride in and specialize in is the actual full implementation, making sure you understand the intangible pieces to where the only way you're going to learn that is by a failure or a trip up and having to go through that learning curve, because that's one of the biggest asset pieces to a consultant or an advisor is being able to give you that shortcut where there really is no shortcuts. So you're able to really capitalize on that. That's why advisors and consultants are so invaluable as long as they're doing the right thing for their clients.
Wow, this is really, really amazing. It's the fact that you're solving problem for the little businesses. And yeah, when we look at the society become better when there are a lot of little businesses who are doing well and they're doing well for themselves. And it's really pretty amazing that you're doing it the right way for them. And yeah, a really big thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
it just boils down to doing the right thing and being a
Yeah.
good person.
Yeah. Thank you. So, what is one failure or lessons that shape your approach to consulting today?
Man, I'd say that's a good one. I've had a couple bad failures. I'd say as far as the consulting aspect in one of like a direct lesson that I learned from this experience for consulting is when you have a project that you put real time into and allocate your resources into it, that is something that ethically you should be being paid, you should be being compensated for. And you really need to have the right framework in place and the right agreements, legal documents in place before you're handing that over. That was a failure that I made the grave mistake of working. I was working for a Fortune 500 company that was doing rather bad. They were a global company. They had locations all over the world and they were expanding in the US, but they were doing very bad in their US expansion. Very, very bad. I think at the time there was 12 facilities in 9 states and they were on an aggressive path of expansion. Of those 12 facilities, 11 month over month operated in the red.
Oh,
The only facility that consistently operated in the green was the one that I had the most oversight over, that I had the most clients at that facility. I was putting together Excel spreadsheets to track shrinkage and loss through like holiday peak season, determining where that was coming from, putting together plan of action, of how to mitigate that, plans of action of how to increase efficiency, how to be able to pay people more so then that way there was less no call no shows and less turnover rate in the employment, like of the actual operational staff, how to increase the quality of the training, of internal training, how to increase the onboarding process for clients, all these things I was putting together, and it came down to it, and they kind of took the whole roadmap, and then they decided to part ways with me and took the whole roadmap and then started to turn the company around. And it
Wow.
was it was it was it was almost night and day, like within a matter of months. Within a matter of months, I knew that they started doing better, that they started to turn around, and I was like, the only way they did that is they took everything that I was putting together, that I was showing them, and they utilized it. And instead of me going to them in a fashion of these are the problems that I've identified, giving them one or two like specific like areas and like solutions that I had developed, and then saying there's X amount more, and what I would like to do is come to some type of an agreement, to where I get X amount of equity, or I get, X amount for this and I oversee this project, and, then have tangible KPIs attached to it. That's the way that I should have went about it, and had a lawyer involved on my end and made sure that the framework and the documents were all like legit. So then that way I could have been compensated for that, because this was a large scale company. So that's something to like anybody who's going to listen to this, that they are in consulting or advisory, or they're, considering going into it, no matter what the industry is, especially the blue collar industry. You really want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. And these things are not only just to protect you, it's to protect the people that is on the other side of the table, and it's also gonna make things clear cut and dry and inarguable on both sides if there's a disagreement or an issue arises to a level to where it can't be solved. This is your solution in those situations, and it's just standard good business practice. So that's one thing that I would implore people, who are listening and watch this episode or listen to this episode, is if that's something that you're looking to do, or just any level of business, really, just make sure your ducks are really in a row. Make sure you have a lawyer review any type of employment contract before you can accept a job, you know, all those things. Anything that should involve paperwork or does involve paperwork, make sure it's reviewed by a lawyer. Make sure you really look it over. Don't just sign things on site. Doesn't matter if you think it's good pay, and don't let anybody press you into those situations.
Wow. This must really be painful, but I'm glad you learned from it.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a big capitalization for me if I would have, thought it out a little bit better and really consulted with a lawyer, and went about it the right way. I mean, you're talking about I could have probably made seven figures.
So sorry for that.
It's a learning curve, really. Like
Yeah,
I
it's true.
don't really look at losses as losses, because I always take good things out of it and turn it into a win by, bringing knowledge out of the situation and moving forward. And
Amazing, and thanks for sharing.
yeah,
So, what is the story behind your motto? Just be a good person.
man. So this is a good one. I used to be real like self-centered. I used to be really like selfish. Um, I mean, and I used to be really all about myself. I used to, make fun of people and things like that, not really care about other people's feelings at all. I guess you could say like I was a bad person, or at least on the track to be a bad person. Life was just not going well. And I had a long stretch. I had like a good 5 to 6 year stretch of just like no wins, nothing but hardships. And it was a lot of like internal reflection of like, why are things going so bad? Like I'm busting my butt and I'm really not getting anywhere. I keep getting turned down for like promotions and, all these different things through that time period. It got to a point to where I was back in college, and the professor that I had was also she is also a mental health therapist, and a lot of the times that we would meet would turn into really just like therapy sessions. And it was, me figuring out like, like she was just giving it to me straight, like, hey, like, you're an asshole. Like, and like all, like all these different things, like, and I appreciate her, like, to this day, like, her and I are best friends, like, we talk, like, almost every day, uh, but, yeah, it was doing a lot of, like, self-reflection and, like, kinda pulling like, stripping back my ego and really figuring out how, like, a lot of things that I was doing and saying and how I was treating people was really hurting and affecting them in those interactions. So, I really tried to do, like, a 180, like, I was a litter bug too, like, I would just throw trash on the side of the road, like, I was yeah. So, turning around, I've done quite a bit of charity work. I'm gonna continue doing charity work. Like that same woman that I just referenced, my friend Tammy. Shout out to Tammy. She's a survivor of 3A breast cancer. So I've done breast cancer awareness work. I plan on doing more breast cancer awareness work this coming year in 2026. I just recently this year did a campaign for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society of America, and I might get involved next year also. And it's because I started viewing things from like I'd see like a homeless person on the street, and instead of like kind of laughing at them and their situation, I really started to reframe my outlook of like, man, maybe like who knows what type of day they've had, who knows how they got there. That person probably could have been a genius. You never know. They could have been a multimillionaire, which is quite funny because the town that I grew up in, there is a woman who people think she's homeless because she's homeless. She's homeless by choice, and she's actually a multimillionaire. She walks around with she has stacks of hundreds and fifties like under her coats. Like she wears like multiple layers, like a lot of homeless people do all year round, but she has a lot of money. So, that was one of the things too I thought back on. I was like, man, that lady wasn't even homeless really. Like she just chose to be homeless. Like she had like kind of like something mental going on. And I started to reframe my outlook on people and like think of it more of like when I saw somebody like, looking like they're having a bad day, like laying on the sidewalk. It's like, man, how'd they get there? I'd love to have a conversation with them. Like if they're still there when I come back by. Like, see, how did you get here? Like, what's your day really been like? Like, you really never know, like, what somebody's day could have been before you've come across them in an interaction. So you saying something that you put no thought into, and it's a very harmful, I would say directly harmful statement, that you are cognizant, like you're aware that that's a statement that could hurt somebody. You don't know, they could really already be at the edge and you could push them over the edge with the way you treat them. So it's kind of better to like go about interactions to where it's like you feel it out first and you really see like where's this person at, don't worry about yourself all the time. Um and that was how my outlook kind of changed, and that was kind of like where I came up with that was like just be a good person, just I flipped myself around. So I know there's people out there that were worse than I was, but you can start making changes, you can start making steps forward. Your steps just might need to be more intense, but it can be done. You don't have to stay a bad person or a person who doesn't care about other people at all. You don't have to stay that way forever. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go out worrying about people's feelings like 24/7 and tiptoe on eggshells, but you also don't have to go around, cussing at people 24/7 and telling people that they don't belong in the world. You don't have to say stuff like that. It doesn't do you any good.
And you know what it means experientially to actually more like go through a whole lot of this particular stuff and being misunderstood, being that some of those places have not actually gone through. So it's really amazing and so emotional. So thanks for sharing. So
Yeah.
how does business owner know when it comes to when is the right time to actually bring a consultant in?
Wow, that's an amazing question. So, if you're starting a business, or you have just recently started a business, or you even own a business, doesn't matter if you're doing very well or not, you should consider an interview. And I say interview by meaning talk to, one or two consultants that can advise you on what are your next steps. So if you're a new business, like you're just wanting to start a business, they can advise you on how should you start this business, what are the important steps to take, What are the things that you really do need to do right out of the gate? And then what are some of the things that you think you need to do right out of the gate, but because of their experience and their knowledge and being a professional in the space, those things that you can actually kind of push back in your priority list and then bring something else that you weren't considering forward in its place. If you're somebody who, you've got a business and it's kind of newer, 100% you should be bringing in a consultant, interview, find a consultant that you mesh with very well, that you feel like is a good fit, and uh, bring them in, pay them the money. They are worth it, especially if you make, again, let me make sure this is very clear. Vet them. Make sure that they're a legitimate company. They actually have license, like insurances, not license, but insurances. Make sure that they actually have like experience, and it sounds like to the best of your ability that they know what they're talking about. Try and get some referrals, like anybody that you could potentially reach out to that they've worked with in the past that would be open to kind of give them a referral, if you reached out. If you're in that like 2 to 3, 4, 5, even 6 years, you should be bringing a consultant in, especially if your goal is to grow, which I don't understand anybody who gets into business to not grow
Yeah.
and make more money. That's just the whole purpose of business on the root level. You need to be paying that consultant. That consultant can take you to that next level. They can show you the path and they can walk you along that path. And that's another thing I want to touch on again is don't get into a contract with a consultant that is not going to walk you through and assist you or do the implementation of whatever it is that they're telling you to do for your business. Don't do that. Make sure you have somebody that's actually going to be there throughout the process or do check-ins, like be on a retainer at least. And then if you're a company that you're doing well, like you think you're doing well, or you actually are doing, rather well, and you've been in business, 10 years, your goal should still be to keep growing. You don't want to regress and go backwards. You want to keep going forward. So you should be bringing in a consultant because as an owner or even like an executive, if that company is that large, you're so focused on the internal things. There's no way you can have your ear to the ground or your finger to the pulse throughout the whole inside of your company as well as your market outside of the company. There's just no way. You don't have enough time or bandwidth. It's just not really possible. So you really should be having that third party advisory perspective that isn't on your payroll, so they're not incentivized, that this person is coming in under a contract that you have protections within, and they're really giving you the raw outlook of what it is that you're doing well, what it is that they find that's inefficient, and how can you really get ahead in your market. Doesn't matter if you're doing well, you can always do better. And the quickest route to B from A to B, the quickest route from A to B is not a straight line. The quickest route to A to B is experience.
Yeah, so true, so true. This is really amazing. I think it's the fact that it just shows that running a business take a whole lot of stuff that have to be in place, and the goal of a business at the end of the day is to, yeah, to become more efficient, get it bigger, scale it, and do other bigger things with it, which really speaks volumes to if every entrepreneur is looking forward to long term. So having someone to guide them, to hold them by their hands, should be a necessity for every business owner, and this really speaks volume. So you often talk about ethic over shortcuts. How can leaders build the kind of integrity into their company culture?
So just so I can understand how can they kind of get a good feeling for the integrity of their company
Yeah,
culture?
how can they build integrity into their company culture?
Well, how can you build it into yeah, so that's a good one. I love this one because this ties directly back to being a good person. You need to be a good leader. Let's just say, and I'll give a quick example. I had a company that I worked for before, and I was a salesperson, and the owner never did sales. Worked in like the owner worked in service for I think about 6 months or a year, and then he had the opportunity to buy into the company. He bought into the company. He never did any of the positions on your way up to owner. And there was a situation to where he was questioning my ability, and It was just a matter of, do you see my numbers? Do you see my reviews? We're not having this conversation anymore. And you wouldn't get that response from an employee as an owner if they respected you and they knew that you had high integrity yourself. You have to really lead by example. So if you own a plumbing company, you should know how to do plumbing. You should know how to do a repipe. You should know how to rough in if you're doing commercial or new build. You should know how to do a ground locate. You should know how to do a drain cleaning. You should know how to install a toilet. Like all these different things. You should know how to do these things yourself to where if in a bad situation, like if there's a downturn for whatever reason in your area, like a major factory goes out of business and people leave, and that leads to you losing some workers, you're not going to really stress because you're like, let's just say you lose your top guy who he does a lot of the training of new hires. You're not gonna really have to stress about it because while you're trying to hire, you just kinda have to crunch your time a little bit. But while you're trying to hire, you're okay because you know how to do those jobs. So you go out, you help out your guys, you're showing them that you're in the trenches, you're leading by example, and then you're able to also continue training until you find that guy that you can put in that place because you didn't skip steps and just jump into ownership just because you had some money. There's a lot of businesses just because you can buy into it, don't do it unless you plan on learning all of the roles underneath, or you will have a respect issue, you will have an integrity issue, and you will have a bad company culture.
Wow, this is really, really amazing. I think you've had that, especially for service business, which demand a whole lot of expertise in terms of executing of your jobs. So being the owner or the founder, not having an idea of what's the take, what real job, what good job is, what level of what level of how will I make reference excellence comes with each job. I think it really came on like getting to know where without what that work event is. Even if you bought the business, learning very fast. So more like capture every aspect of it is very, very key towards doing a better job and towards leading others. So that at the end of the day, it won't be as though you are micromanaging them, and it really, really speak volume. Yeah. So how do you
Yeah,
help?
you can't.
Yeah, yeah. That is mostly the issues. Once you don't know what the business entails, at the end of the day, you micromanage, and there will be issue of insecurity and yeah, a whole lot of back and front. So how do you
Yeah.
help business? How do you help business identify the real bottleneck, and blind spots?
But yeah, so bottlenecks and blind spots, that kind of loops back around to the whole you're not gonna be able to see all of your blind spots as an owner or like an executive member of that company. That's really looking at your operations, right? And for the most part, in a lot of companies, what are your systems? What are your programs in place? And then also what's your sequencing? Sequencing matters in a lot of different business models. So really figuring out where those inefficiencies are and how to clean those up. So it's really doing a dive, like an analysis of seeing what are your processes, what are the systems that you're using, what are your KPIs and everything that people are having to adhere to. Where's the breakdown at that's causing a slow up of your process or causing a waste of money or material or whatever it is and implementing the right fix, whether that's a system upgrade, whether that's an operational upgrade, whether that's a training matter. It's really doing an analysis on it. And this kind of brings me into something that, I don't know if it was going to come up at all in our conversation, but when I sit down with a business owner or just any of my consultants, I implore them to make this statement or at least have the conversation around. We understand this is your company. We're not trying to take your company over. We're trying to embed into your company to enhance your company's DNA. Hence the name. That's the way that I came to the name. But in order for us to do that and to be able to produce you the best result, we need you to check your ego at the door. when we start this. It's not a matter of we're trying to get into a pissing match with you. We're just telling you that in order for us to be able to work the best for you, we need you to not try and withhold or get in our way so that way we can make sure that you leave this contract with a positive outcome and feeling like I would refer these people to all of my network of other business owners because they really did help me. So, you know, that to be able to fix those bottlenecks and those blind spots, we really have to be able, we got to know, like, we got to know your data. You have to give us all your data. You have to make sure it's accurate, or else we can't help you to the best of, our ability. We've got a lot of ability. The people on my team and some of the people that I'm bringing on here soon, we have a lot of ability. Collectively, we have when I started, it was over 30 years of experience. Now we're over 50 years collectively of experience. So, yeah, we've got a lot of it. Myself, I have over 18 years of experience as far as like sales and operations management. So, we've got a lot of experience to where we can really help businesses. It's just you got to really check your ego at the door. And I get it. I've been a business owner. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
This is your baby. This is your baby. This is your livelihood. This is your daily thing. You built this. So kind of like turning over all your information and stuff and kind of stepping to the side and letting somebody do what they need to do. That's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. So trust me, I fully understand it. But if you really want to get to that next level or that next step, and you're already in the conversation with us, why not just go on through with it? So
Yeah, I think this is
that's kind of
very
how we approach the bottlenecks and blind spots.
amazing. I think this is very, very lovely, especially for service business and for blue collar entrepreneurs, being that a whole lot of them, when they started out their jobs, majority of them actually just started just them alone before they get to kind of a hub, one or two, three other stuff. So most times the idea of what the company entails, their service entails is dominant in their head, not in paper. Not most times or more like through trainings and everything. Having something that gets to interrogate them to bring in why they do what they do, I think it's very, very key. And sometimes, just the way you said, ego can be something that very, very demanding, being that it's as though now you're questioning me. Why are you questioning me? So this
Yeah.
is,
I don't know that we'd ever say that, but it's kind of like a matter of like,
yeah,
understand you have some questions about this. Like,
yes,
let's
yes,
break this down to you so that you can understand why we're doing it this way and why this is the best.
yeah. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is
But
really,
I
this
don't think
is,
I don't think we would ever say something like, why are you questioning? Like, don't ask us any questions.
Hello. Amazing, amazing. So what does it take to build a legacy business that lasts beyond the founder?
Man, that's a question, Aro. That's a question. So I don't know. I might get some pushback. I might get some hate on this viewpoint. Legacy businesses are almost a thing of the past. The way that business is revolving now is, I'm not saying that there's no business models or no industries where you can't build a legacy business. There still are some. But for the most part, I'll tell you like this, some of the businesses that I'm involved in, that I'm working on deals right now, just on my own portfolio outside of this company, there's only 1 out of 4 that is a legacy business. It's hard to think that you're going to build something to where it's going to gain enough of a market share, become enough of a powerhouse to where you can pass that along to your kids, and then it will make it to your grandkids, and then it will make it to your great grandkids. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah,
Just the probability and the percentage that you have that chance is far less than 30 years ago. There's the silver tsunami that's happening right now, which is all the baby boomers in America that are still retiring. There's already been a wave. There's so much more waves coming. There's a lot of businesses that are for sale, especially in the service industry, that and the one business out of the 4 right now that I'm working on is a baby boomer, and she has 2 sons that neither one of them want anything to do with her business. She has multiple locations, and her plan, she has no succession plan. That's something that I want to come back to, is succession planning. She has no succession plan in place. So what is her plan? She's going to shut her locations down and just close them down.
Oh,
What does that do? That hurts the communities that her locations are in. For one, they lose that service. For two, if she was to sell it, who's she going to sell it to? She's going to end up probably selling to somebody who's going to blend it into a franchise model. The services are going to diminish. The quality of the product's going to be less. And then the community has a disservice either way. So that's why myself and a couple of other people are working to try and come to an agreement with her to purchase this. So then that way we can kind of keep it a legacy model and expand it and grow it and make it one of the cornerstones of the portfolio that we're building out. Legacy businesses are kind of hard to come by, like the plumbing companies, the electricians, like all those guys. They're not, a lot of kids just aren't interested in taking over the business. So you need to have a good succession plan of like, how am I going to sell this? How will I even market this? I need to, you should start having conversations with people like me or like people that have experience with succession planning to figure out what are you going to do with it, because just shutting it down makes no sense. So, that the legacy model is not something that I go directly towards anymore. I more so steer people towards that are just starting businesses. I kind of steer them towards, how can we build this model to gain you traction and have a ramp up of revenue, recognizing profit, increase your value, and then while you're on that upswing is when you start marketing your company to sell. So we're talking about, in most use cases, we're talking about probably like a 4 to 6 year window, maybe 7 years, 7, 8 years. And you should be looking to make your exit. And then you should already have your plan of what are you going into next? What are you going to roll some of that profit into next? That's going to be, in a lot of cases, in a lot of industries, that's going to be a really good way of going about it, unless you have a strong legacy model and you have a really good succession plan in place, or you have kids that are already interested and already working in your business. Then you can kind of push towards that legacy model. But if you're just starting something out, you should be trying to grow that business, get it valuable, and then exit the business while it's on the upswing, because then if you exit here, you can recognize profit here, even though you haven't
yeah.
gotten there, because then there's still this much room for the person who's going to buy it. So then they still have room to grow as well and make their profit. That's the realistic way. I might catch hate for that. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
think it's very, very key from what you just said, because I think every now and then when I get to listen to some podcasts like the Founders Podcast and some just telling stories of various entrepreneurs who actually more like started out, who are founders of various businesses, and how a whole lot of those businesses actually more like went out from existing. I think it just speaks volumes. So yeah, the children are no longer interested and they're not willing to work on it anymore. And not just that alone, it's the fact that yeah, the world is changing and AI coming into being, a whole lot of things changing. So even the fact that you're starting a business, the probability of it even existing in 5 years' time is sometimes it's not. In 5 years' time it might be out of the way. They don't demand that service anymore. So it will just actually more like building businesses. Yeah, leave legacy first. At the end of the day, it might be, it might not be. It's more like just writing a possibility, and it might work, it might not work. But I think the goal should be towards more
Yeah.
like towards working on it, towards scaling, and towards kind of getting a whole lot of margin from this. Yeah, from the start.
Yeah, like I was listening to your episode. I went back and I was listening to it again. Your episode with Jason Vanderveer. I actually know of his family. They're a big name family in Eastern Ohio, and because I grew up not that far, so I mean, he made a good point to where it's like I wasn't cut out
Yeah,
really for the family business. Like it went on, I like maybe not cut out, but like it wasn't for him. He did his thing. He worked in the family business. Like it just wasn't for him. And he went on and did his own thing. There's a lot of businesses like that they've grown in big size and their kids just aren't really, taking the business up, like, even if it's a big business. But that's just something that people should consider is like, do my kids really want to have anything to do with this?
All right.
Yeah, you can't just assume that your kids are going to become an adult
Yeah.
and do what
Do
you
what?
want them to do,
Yeah,
you
so
know?
true. So true. So, what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about running a business?
About running a business, man, I've heard quite a few misconceptions to where it's like, oh man, you make a business plan, you apply for your business license or whatever, and you get like that number thing from the government, and then you can kind of open and just start doing business. It's like, okay, well, have you ever made a business plan before? No, but I mean, I'm sure there's like people that will do it for you. Okay. Yeah, we charge anywhere from $1,500 to $15,000 for a business plan. They can span. It depends on what is your business, what's the market, how big are you starting? Like, are you starting out with employees? Like, all these different things come into play to how much work we're gonna have to do to make that business plan for you. Are you also gonna require coaching on like how to go in and get the funding from the bank? Do you know what to say? It's not like you can go in, slap your business plan on the table and say, "Here you go, I need $500,000. I'll take that in all hundreds." That's not really how that works. It's just, um, that's not how that works. And then if you've never like applied for, an LLC, you don't know the steps, you don't know what you need to do. Like, some states require you to disclose for like 6 weeks before you can actually start operating and doing business. So you have to like take out a newspaper ad and all of this different stuff. So there's situations like that a lot of people really think that it's a quick, simple process. It is quick and simple when you're somebody who's gone through it and you figured out the wrong ways to do it. That's why it makes sense to have a consultant. Even if you're starting a brand new business, it makes sense to have a consultant. It's not, we're not always expensive for brand new business owners. Like, our model for like a brand new business owner is like, okay, so we're going to lower our cost for you. So then that way your cost to entry is bearable. You can get in, you're not using a bunch of your chunk that you have saved. And then instead it will offset to equity for a temporary period of time. So then that way we can make sure that you're getting set up and going the right way. But yeah, those are the biggest misconceptions I hear is like the process. It's not that crazy. You can just set up an Etsy shop and just start selling or whatever. It's like, have you gone through the application? They're gonna ask you questions and they're gonna want information that you're gonna be like, well, what is that? Like, where do I get that from? I have to actually register this
Yeah.
business as doing business as, or I have to have a business bank account, like all these different things. It's like, it's not that easy to set a business
Yeah.
up. People think it's like, okay, well, I'm going to start this daycare or whatever, because there's a ton of people having kids in my area the last couple of years. And I know that, okay, where are you going to find the staff? What is your county or your state's regulation as far as like how many kids per adult? All these different things come into play that a lot of people don't think about. And it's like, I'm not bashing, I'm not saying anything in a negative light. It's just, these are the reasons. All the stuff that I'm saying is the reasons as to why you should be consulting with someone who does these things for a living, pay them appropriately, and watch the benefits that you receive from doing it the right way.
Yeah. Well, it's
That's all I just wish. That's all I would implore people to do is explore that option first. Don't explore the option of going at it on yourself thinking that you're going to save money, because I promise you, I've done that. You will waste more money.
yeah.
That is something that I can promise
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much for that. I think I think for me it's the reason most times more like when I'm reading business book, I don't find it that joyous. Other than that, I would just go and read histories and found out biographies because even as much as I'm not going to see how they do it in real time, I saw what they did there. Compared to business book, they can just analyze it. Draft draft this plan, and it look very easy when you are reading it compared to in real time when you put them to practice. You're like, whoa. Wow, it seems the problem they encountered when they wrote this book is not now. So it's
Yeah.
actually crazy. So you have actually helped people turn struggling company around. What is one transformation stories that really stand out for you?
Transformation story that really stands out. I'd say, geez, this one company, not too long ago, guy was literally about to sell the company, just because he's like, I don't know, I'm just having a tough time at it, tough go of it or whatever. And I was like, what have you tried? I've tried everything, but just kind of give me an example. Like, what'd you try? This is how the conversation went. I was like, well, like, just kind of tell me, like, what, like, give me like two, three things that you've tried. Well, I tried to hire more people. Okay. What else did you try? I tried to take out, I tried to run some ads, in the local paper. And then I tried to send out coupons. So, and like, after looking into like everything, I was like, "Geez, you've got a little golden nugget for, like, your area. You really have room to, like, grab a lot of business," it wasn't, like, a small area, but it wasn't a big area either, maybe, like, 20,000 people or whatever. So, it was figuring out, like, I said, like, can you show me your books? Like, how much are you spending for everything? How much, I need to see, like, where your margins at, like, everything like that. I need to see what are your processes, what are the systems that you're using. So he had no systems. He was just writing stuff down in notebooks. So that was one of the first things was, okay, we need to look at like a scheduler. We need to look at what else did I put in place from a CRM, and then an inventory management as well that was built into the CRM. So it was just an extra added thing for the CRM that he ended up picking out of the two or three that I gave to him to look at. From there, it was what is his actual operations? Did he have any actual like operations in place? Like as far as like what are his SOPs, what are his SLAs, or like his service level agreements? What are his service level expectations? Did he have any contracts for his customers or anything like that? If he was going to hire employees, like when he was like trying to find people to hire, like did he even have an employment agreement that he didn't? So, I gave him an employment agreement, put together like basic SOP, and then operational structure for the company. Honestly, it was like a little under a year, like 9, 10 months. He had done like 600 grand. Because after that, he needed like he did need like 3 or 4 employees like out of the gate. He did, like for sure, because he had enough business to where like he was scheduling out instead of being able to take on more at the same time. So he was able to get a couple people in place, and then after that, then that's when I got him set up with like a marketing person, and they ran like some Facebook ads and Instagram ads and on Google, and I got him a website set up too, and because he had no website. So yeah, I mean that was a good turnaround one, but that was also like my word of mouth days before I actually started putting DNA consulting together. Um, I actually reached out to him not too long ago, and I haven't really heard much back from him, so I'm hoping that he's doing okay. And if I hear from him, then I'm gonna see if I can't get like a good testimonial from him.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. This is really amazing. And it's really be
Yeah.
amazing having these more like conversations, especially the fact that they have worked the whole lot of business, turn them around, and yeah, through just interviewing them, being able to see the bottleneck and being able to provide solutions to it. Also, Darren, it's really be amazing having this conversation. How can my audience learn more about you? How can they do business with you? And what is the best platform for this?
Yeah, no, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you for having me. The best way they can find me and my team is our website, which is DNA Business co.com. All of our socials are DNABIZ, like biz. All of our socials are that same handle. Google us. We're starting to rank up in the Google searches. Look for more content. I'm going to be recording more content here soon as far as just kind of like direct advice and things like that to business owners. Don't think you're going to get free game. I'll give kind of like some general guidance, but I'm not going to be giving free game. Like this is information that it's valuable enough to where if you really care about your business and you really want to invest, reach out. Our consultations are free. We give you a free half hour to kind of like figure out what it is that your business is doing, ask you some questions. We want you to ask us questions. And then from there, we kind of give you an idea of what are the next steps. And that's when, you could potentially start paying us. But the content's going to be good content. It's going to be really straightforward content, not content that other people are putting out. It's going to be straightforward. So look for that. I'll be posting that. My personal page, like my personal business page, to where I just kind of like post my daily life or whatever on my stories and stuff like that, is agent dot dbl08, so like agent 008. But yeah, I might change it. I've been getting a lot of hate for it.
Amazing.
But
Yeah, thank you, Darren. Darren, it's really been more like this has been really been more like a masterclass. Business done the right way, not just hype. No shortcuts, just truth and strategy. Yeah,
yeah, don't take shortcuts. Don't take shortcuts, people. I promise you, it will bite you. I've taken one shortcut in my life and it bit me. And I was 14, and my dad was on me about it. He's like, "Why did you tell me that you did this?" So don't take shortcuts. Don't take
yeah,
shortcuts.
amazing. So, our listener, if you are serious about building a business with integrity, results, connect with Darren and his team at dnabusiness co.com, or you will find insights FAQS and also a free consultation link there. This is Yaro Benaya Show. Thanks for listening. And remember, it's not just about building business, it's about building one that. Once again, it's really a pleasure having you on the show, Darren.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It was great talking with you.